From defending his title to staying in the same rank, Makhachev versus Volkanovski may just have brought out the ugly side of the UFC rankings. Some call it unfair, but many are calling it a fraud. The official UFC rankings are published each week at UFC.com and are usually used to advertise high-caliber matches between elite athletes, such as our fighters from the UFC 284 main card. Volko has been rated as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world for quite some time, and his opponent, Islam, was right behind him at the sweet second spot. And these rankings are basically used as a means to bring the better fighters against each other.
Alexander Volkanovski with a signature performance tonight.
He's just a step ahead, and tonight he's on another level.
You know, for hype purposes. Anyway, after how the fight ended, you'd think, hey, Islam's got to be the new #1, right? Wrong. After the whole event was advertised as a rank-changing fight, Makhachev's assassination of Volko, though not without difficulty, changed nothing. This sparked more discussion about the ranks on social media, so much so that fans wanted to inquire about who even was on the ranking committee. Maybe some major names, right? Wrong again.
Trying to head back to Dagestan with the goal.
It's been a long time coming for Makhachev. Everyone's been saying that he is the
Not even a hint of names like MMA Media, MMA Fighting, or MMA Junkie, and these are just a few big names. Instead, you'll discover niche media such as Top Turtle Podcast and Cherokee Scout. What the? The full name list can be found on the official UFC website, but here are a few you definitely haven't heard of. I know I haven't. MMA Soldier, MMA Oddsbreaker, or Wrestling Observer. You know what? I'm starting my own thing now. Wrestling Watcher, unless that's taken. But again, it shouldn't matter, because it was within these names that the problem was discovered. Within the ranking, the panel is another website called burspark.sc. This is where the fun part comes in. The website hasn't been functional for quite a while now. Anyway, the official rankings panel now includes Wrestling Observer, see, it's taken. Oh no, wait, mine was Watcher. But it still wouldn't have mattered. The Wrestling Observer is a reputable source for news and commentary on professional wrestling and combat sports. Nevertheless, the media outlet's founders, Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez, recently denied taking part in the weekly vote. Interesting. How many more phantom outlets are used to compile the repeating tally then? UFC has to be honest, right? There's got to be a justification of some sort. Popular content maker Tommy Toe tweeted that he looked up and looked through every single week of UFC's pound-for-pound rankings. He said he thought it would be fun to do research on the dates since the rankings started. Tommy said he noticed that even though neither boxer had a fight back then, he counted 65 occasions on which fighters in the top 10 switched places. And to my surprise, it occurs way too often in every weight class. Plus, a fighter loses enough votes if an outlet doesn't submit its rankings on time, or isn't otherwise counted during a given week to have an impact on where a fighter may land in the top 15. An example of this is that, for no apparent reason, Ryan Spann recently moved into a tie with Volkan Oezdemir. Why? I guess we'll never know. But you know things are bad when Dana joins forces with the fans. The UFC president was seen criticizing the trash rankings the media companies choose. The media companies his company had engaged. But no, jokes aside, it's definitely not a good indication. The majority of UFC athletes hate the official rankings, but occasionally this is just a resentment over being passed over. It's also important to note, it's time for a thorough revamp of the system, or for its total abolition, whichever comes first.
Fight and showing off his skills, being so undersized and moving up a weight class. But tonight belongs to Islam Makhachev.
I've talked so much about the rankings, let's now talk about the guy who was affected the most, the lightweight champion. When Islam found out that Alex was going to stay as the UFC's #1 pound-for-pound fighter, he wasn't really shocked. He thinks that the top slot has been more than overlooked. And as I said, the ranks were all that the fight was about. And if you don't go from the second spot to the first, then the win is sort of useless. Because, looking at it this way, Islam was already a champion. What else could he possibly want other than becoming the first-ranked fighter? Makhachev believed it was unfair that the UFC rankings stayed the same because his major objective heading into the battle was to dethrone Volko. Other than that, the footage was published, and Islam said that he never even expected justice. That is just sad. And let's put aside how he won. Props to Volko for putting up a fight, but come on. He said that he still has no hope that it's gonna change. He gave other fighters as examples and described how the fans have witnessed the same thing with them. Magomed Ankalaev and Peter Yan were a few names he brought up, and one thing Islam keeps saying over and over is that he traveled all the way from Russia, beat the guy, won the belt, and still remained second in the rankings. And yeah, Volko wants a rematch, but so does Islam, and the UFC should really fix present issues before starting a whole rivalry. Wait, hold up, maybe that's what they're doing. But again, this isn't the first time the UFC has come under fire. Fighters have called the rankings a joke way too many times now. We all know what happened to Rafael Fiziev, a rising lightweight in the UFC. Fiziev, who also knocked out fellow 155-pound bruiser Brad Riddell back in December 2021 as part of UFC Vegas 44, earned his fifth victory. The 28-year-old fighter was moved up to number 11 in the promotion's official lightweight rankings by the bonus-winning performance, where he is now placed at number 6 between seasoned fighters like Michael Chandler and the Polish fighter Mateusz Gamrot. But back then, his number 11 ranking was absurd, especially according to his manager Daniel Rubenstein, who also posted on social media that it's got to be a joke Fiziev wasn't put behind Chandler at number 6. Well, guess what, Daniel? Your prayers have been answered. I mean, now that he's where he was meant to be about a year ago, it doesn't make too much sense when it comes to being just, does it? And as I've said before, this isn't the first time rankings have been a farce. The GOAT straight up wanted to be removed from the silly rankings. I thought it would be wise to talk about Jon Jones, provided UFC 285 is days away. He went on Twitter in October 2021 and called out almost everyone. As we all know, he used to be number 1 literally everywhere. And back then, due to his inactivity, he was dropped from rank number 1 to rank number 4.
Skills of mixed martial arts, which Lyoto also possesses, and it makes for a very unusual opponent.
On the pound-for-pound list, it didn't sit well with him that people who couldn't even defend themselves were above him. That was a dig at Israel Adesanya. Only if inactivity had stopped in time would Jones not have dropped to number 10. He currently sits behind Brandon Monero, Charles Oliveira, and many others. But you know how this sport goes. Everyone was happy in a funny way that they were above Boney. Throughout the years, he continued to poke fun at fighters, claiming that they could win only 1/3 of an MMA fight and still be considered real fighters.
By Lyoto, staggered Jon Jones backward. Let's take a look again.
Sheesh. Plus, at that time, his heavyweight pot was just brewing. Jones claimed that the only people who were content with being ranked higher than him were fighters who ate dirt at his hands. For real, you couldn't see any heavyweights talking about Jon, probably because they knew he was going to change weight classes and silence them in the ring. There, I think that's enough on the ranks for today, right?